Well, here we are, bright and early, 11:45. I've already been down here a while. This is the unit that we assembled yesterday for the test, and I have some feedback thinking through what happened and all. This is the diagram that I used to identify the key components and be able to glue this thing together and give it a test out. You can see the little melt point there where the heater got it hot. And I did quite a bit of thinking over the evening and this morning already. So I flipped it around today. I did another test, by the way, and I had the motor wired in the wrong direction. The fan works in one direction, and that is rotating this way, okay? And if you look in the video, it's rotating the opposite direction, so it wasn't pushing the air the way it was intended. I tested it earlier today in the proper direction, and I had billows of smoke coming out of the smoke chamber. So the fan in the right direction is a big deal. All you have to do is polarize the power source, so it's either going in the right way or the wrong way, and you flip the leads and it goes the opposite. What I focused on today was what worked, some of the lessons that I learned, and where I need to go from here. So I came up with what the prototype taught me, and here the plate works. The whole notion of this plate, putting the motor together, is a good thing. I learned that plastic melts. I learned that a square and straight is important in my fabrication, but that's not a big deal. But the main thing was that the whole concept of the horizontal fan works, okay? So now I'm identifying up here the main components. So the main component, of course, is the motor. You got to check the rotation. Then we need this adapter plate. And I had 0.8 millimeters of styrene. I'm thinking 1.5 millimeters of injected 3D plastic would probably perform the same function. It doesn't have to be steel. I thought it might. The fan, both of these parts are purchased from Lionel. Then I have the fan housing, which we've gotten a few prototypes that we've fooled with. I kind of know how to build that. But my challenge is I need to have one that bolts to this, and I need to have one that then migrates over to the smokehouse and affords a lid with a heater and an outlet for the smokestack. So this just needs to be a box that goes around the fan with 2 holes in it, but then it has to lead up to with a tube or some kind of an air channel for the smoke to run in here and then out the top. But I also need to have some kind of space where the inlet is able to pull air in, and the air then gets pushed out to the sides pressurize, and then only one way out goes in that direction. So I started over here, went down the side, came up with this gap, this interface as a gap, and I got some of the requirements. You need the pressure, the smokehouse. The smokehouse has to be under pressure with the fan turning so that the air comes out the lead. We also have to seal the bottom, seal the area between the fan and the smoke. So here and here, or anytime there's a gap, especially it's going to be here. And if I make this a separate component, then I've got extra gaps I have to fuss about. But also I'm trying to look at, make it an assembly, or is it a one designed print? Can you even make it in one print? Then I decided to look at the 3 ways of getting the inlet in around this tube. One would be from the bottom. So I leave a channel here for air to get sucked in. Oops, that's the top. Yeah, the top. Sorry, that's the top. Air gets sucked in from the top. Here, air gets sucked in from the bottom. And then the third piece that I never thought of before was from the side, like grills in a car. And then I realized that would just mean 2 pieces with a space on the side, and air could come in. But then I realized again, if I just made these molded parts, what you end up with is a little slit, almost like a fin of a shark. Think of it that way. So you'd have a fin of a shark in the side of the molded part, the fabricated part, and air would be sucked in. And then you'd have a plastic tube, like a tip or something, poking out into the smoke box. So you end up with an airtight seal that doesn't have any components, but it's actually airtight because of the design. So I started to feel pretty good about that. Then I started to look at the smokehouse and the things that we have to deal with, and there's some of the challenges. Heat resistant, I'm gonna have to look at insulating, I might have to do aluminum lining. I have to have a tight lid so I don't want any leakage at the top. I have to have leads for the smoke heater, which go to the power supply, and then I need some kind of an opening for the smokestack to come out the top. That's up there. So I put all this into my head, and I listed the components that I have to deal with, and then I came up with what I call the conceptual layout. And here I'm pointing to this motor and the interface as one part. So the motor is inside this cavity, and the fan is inside this cavity. The motor is sticking out the back off of that plate, so that there's not a tube, but maybe like a nozzle or a tip or a part of a circle with a wall, an opening, and then a side opening. The side opening gets exciting more I think about it. And then over here's the smokehouse, and it's just going to have an oversized plate so these surfaces can mate. So then I started thinking, wow, if I just put these two together, made this part and this part the same, made this part and this part the same part, what would it have to look like? And as I get onto this, it's not too bad. There's a channel for the air to go from the fan to the smoke, and then beneath that I have to have some side vents for the inlet air to come in just below that, and it starts to look pretty simple. So then I started coming up with a concept. If I were really going to print this thing, if my pen was a nozzle and I was going to inject the plastic, in layers, could I do that? And I started to test my way out, doing it from the nose out, and then I did it from the plate out. And what I really found I liked best was from the plate side, where the motor and fan are going to insert. If that were the bottom, and I built this whole thing pointing upward like this, and I actually started to print from here, I could actually just see myself being the nozzle, kind of being able to come up with these components and having a nice, tight, sealed air box and accuracy. And the only surface that I have to worry about being flat and straight is where I bolt the plate. And I think I can verify that flatness by using either sandpaper or a test fit. And I can kind of finish that surface and make it flat, and then the plate can go on. The challenge is that fan has to be perpendicular to the axis of the fan has to be perpendicular to the axis of that opening. But I can always increase that. What I'm finding is this fan has tons of pressure. It can create a lot of airflow. It can pressurize this smoke box real easy. So I'm thinking I'm going to be able to loosen my tolerances on the fan, build it from this way up, and I'm going to build it as one part. The whole darn thing is one part. And the only two pieces I'm going to need is the plate, like we talked about here, the plate for the motor, and the lid. I need the lid so I can put in the heater and the packing for the absorb the oil. All of this is going to be built as one part. And that's my challenge today, is starting with this design, which is an older design that I fiddled with and didn't do anything with, but I now think there's a way to bring this around and turn this into what I need. Using these holes for the plate, turn that into a square, and just march my way down until I end up at the smokehouse. And I already know what the smokehouse needs to look like.